Thought leadership content. What is a manifesto? Thought leaders sell their ideas, but in a noisy marketplace where everybody's yelling and calling out for attention, how do you attract your ideal clients? And how do you keep them coming back again and again? You don't do this based on pricing, special offers, or gimmicks. What separates one thought leader from the next is their philosophy about how the world works. But philosophy can be vague and intellectual. How can we make this simple and practical? Your challenge as a thought leader is to define how you see the world and share this in simple ways so your clients can buy into your philosophy. The key is to share your philosophy as a manifesto, a set of simple statements that informs your clients, but also it can expand into a book, a training program, or a keynote presentation. In this video, we'll share what is a manifesto, what is a thought leader's manifesto, and what is a rule-based manifesto. I'm Geoff McDonald. I help business experts become thought leaders so they can earn money from what they know from anywhere. And make sure you stick around to the end where I'll share how Stephen Covey wrote his world-famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, using a manifesto structure. The flood of thought leadership content. When you search for leadership experts on Google, there are 550 million responses. When you search for strategy experts, there are 719 million responses. And when you type in innovation experts into Google, there are 869 million responses. That's over 2 billion pages on just 3 types of business experts. The good news is this refers to pages and not experts. The bad news is it shows how much content is on the web. And worse, it shows how much competition there is for thought leadership content. This raises the big question. In such a noisy and crowded marketplace, how do you stand out so you can attract your ideal clients? More importantly, once you've attracted your ideal clients, how do you keep them coming back year after year after year when there is so much competition out there? The answer to these 2 questions comes down to what separates one thought leader from another. Imagine if we downloaded 10 pieces of content from 10 thought leaders on the same topic and stuck them all up on the wall. What would be different about these thought leadership content examples? Well, they might be similar in some of the tips they suggest or the tactics. The strategies will all be slightly different. And this represents the different worldviews, the different way each of these thought leaders sees the world. The key to be able to attract your ideal clients is to be able to show your unique take on the world, your philosophy. The more clearly you can do this, the more likely you are to attract your ideal clients. And most importantly, the number one thing I want my clients to say about me is that I like the way you think. Because this implies that they've bought into my strategy, my philosophy, and my way of seeing the world. And it means they're more likely to stick around for longer because they want to keep employing and using and profiting from my philosophy. What is a manifesto? I've spent years collecting, curating, and publishing over 250 manifestos over at 1000manifestos.com. And during this time, I've had a lot of conversations with people about what is a manifesto. And there's usually 2 responses. The first is that it's a rant from a crazy person who's probably out to kill some people. Not good press. The second is that it's a tool for change, and it's primarily used in the arts or in social change or in some areas of politics. By definition, a manifesto is a public declaration of your intent. Let's look at 3 famous manifesto examples. The most famous one is the Communist Manifesto written by Marx and Engels. And this turned out to be a book that was written about the rights of the workers relative to capitalism. The second famous one is the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial, where he paints the picture of what the world will look like if we could end racism. And the third example I love is JFK, President John F. Kennedy of the US, when he declared in the early 60s that the US would send a man to the moon by the end of the decade. These three manifestos are all about public change or social change, and they're all describing the world they want to see. In comparison, what is a thought leader's manifesto? For thought leaders operating in the world of business, their manifesto needs to be a little bit different. In the business world, the purpose of a thought leadership manifesto is to help your clients have a more successful business. We talked about this in a previous video, share what you know about business success. For example, if you're a thought leader in innovation, your manifesto needs to be, how can I be a better innovator? If you're a leadership expert, your manifesto needs to be about how to be a better leader. For a strategy expert, it's how to be better at strategy. This is your philosophy for how to win in your area of business. And it follows that if you lined up 10 leadership experts and asked them what their winning strategy was, their philosophy would be different, so therefore their strategy would be slightly different too. And this is what your clients are buying from you, your strategy for winning. What is a rules-based manifesto? The big problem with philosophy is that it can be vague and intellectual. And particularly in the business world, we don't want that. We want simple and practical. The key to this is a rules-based manifesto. I talked about this in the video, Thought Leadership Content Marketing. There are two levels to this. The first is to define the context that we're operating in. And the second is to define the rules, the practices, the habits, the principles for how we're going to win in that domain or context. And make sure you stick around to the end where I'll share how Stephen Covey used this exact structure to write his world-famous book. Let's wrap up what we've covered here. The key to thought leadership content is to define your philosophy, which is how you see the world. To share your philosophy, we need a manifesto, and in particular, a rules-based manifesto. If you want social change, show us the world you want to live in. If you're working in business, show us how to be successful in business. The more clearly you can articulate your business philosophy, the more likely you are to attract your ideal clients. And this will also give you a better chance of them coming back to you again and again in the future. Now for the bonus. Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is one of the best-selling business books of all time. Since it was published in 1989, it's sold over 25 million copies. That's one for almost every person in Australia. The first part of Covey's approach is his context or viewpoint. Back in the 1980s, when Covey was doing his research, most of the books on self-help were based on personality. Covey said, I think there's a better way. Rather than look at personality, let's look at the character ethic, and in particular the values and timeless principles that drive that character ethic. In other words, habits that build character. Then, inside of this new context, he's able to share his 7 rules, or his 7 habits, to be highly effective. The magic here is that these principles can be shared in multiple ways. For instance, if you've read Covey's book, you can probably remember some or all of the principles. The principles are: be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, think win-win, seek first to understand, then to be understood, synergize, and sharpen the saw. Importantly, these sound bites can also be expanded, which Covey did by writing a chapter about each one of them, which became his famous book. They also became modules in a training program that enabled Covey Franklin, his business, to expand into a global force. This is a great example of thought leadership. While I have no evidence that Covey ever used the word manifesto, it fits the structure of a manifesto beautifully. Covey sets a fresh context. Instead of personality, he talks about character ethics and traits and habits. He then proposes 7 rules for winning in that context. What he's saying is, in this context, this is how you win. If you're a leadership expert, what's your context for how to be successful as a leader? And then what are your principles, your rules, your actions, your habits for how to win as a leader? And this is how you can use your thought leadership content, by defining your philosophy as a manifesto such that you can attract your ideal clients and they'll keep wanting to work with you again and again. If you have any questions about how to do this, feel free to add a comment below. And if you want some coaching around this, head over to Anywhere Experts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.